Part 82. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 817. Really? It was similar to what Yilin had guessed at first. On the third night, the people squatting in the grass couldn't stand it any longer, so they unanimously covered their faces and launched an attack on the Golden Temple. Among the people who attacked the Golden Temple, some were just ordinary martial arts warriors who did not understand the art, and some were wielding strange weapons with shining lights and seemed to be quite powerful. Some people go up the mountain carrying torches, killing people and burning houses when they see them. Not long after, a blazing fire lit up the sky. The shouts of killing penetrated the night, and Yilin finally reluctantly closed the secret book. He was excited to read it, but was disturbed by this attack. Boom! In the distance, on the top of the mountain, a pillar of fire rose into the sky. More than a dozen figures were blown away by the sudden pillar of fire. They descended the mountain at the speed of light, and all their bodies fell to the ground. Xiahua threw a grenade. Yilin nodded. Although Yilin didn't know what kind of fish Wang Xiahua was involved in, he even used grenades. It seemed that he had encountered some kind of crisis. But I have to say that the luck of this cargo is pretty good. Among so many grenades, the only one that can explode was found by Wang Xiahua, so he is pretty lucky. Before Wang Xiahua set off, Yilin left a female nail for Xiahua in advance. At a critical moment, Wang Xiahua easily broke off the female nail and asked Yilin for help. Even Wang Xiahua didn't panic, so Yilin didn't panic. About 20 minutes later, the Golden Temple undergoes another unexpected event. Waves of loud chanting suppress the shouts of killing. A translucent cover with bright golden light, as if it were virtual and real, rushed from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain. Yilin squinted her eyes and looked at the golden cover. When she saw it, she suddenly became focused. The golden cover was not a strange thing, but more than 20 monks with no grass on their heads, gathered together. At the same time, golden light swaying like flames ignited on their bodies, and those lights condensed into a cover. The cover seemed to be some kind of magic. The robbers' weapons landed on the golden cover with a thud, making ripples, but they couldn't break through. That's interesting. Yilin saw it wonderfully. The cover was obviously released by the eminent monks of Heian Temple. It was invulnerable to fire and water. It was a turtle shell-like skill. It also took into account special effects and was very domineering. Right now. Yilin frowned, and in the distant night sky, a bright meteor quickly passed by. He barely hesitated, and with a wave of his hand, he hid the spirits of the 3 relatives and mothers who were hesitant to speak, and stepped into Jian Nanshun's warning range without saying a word. Really? When Yilin stepped into that circle, the feeling of being secretly spied on in Sanpingsuan appeared again, making Yilin feel a little uncomfortable. Yilin pretended not to know, with a hint of nervousness appearing on her round face. Taking advantage of the shadow of the trees and the night, like a fledgling young man, he quietly moved towards the top of the mountain. The shouts of death were all concentrated in the direction of the Golden Temple, but Yilin didn't meet many people along the way, perhaps because they were not unlucky enough to meet Yilin in the vast woods. 10 minutes later, Yilin arrived at the foot of the mountain. There were already many corpses along the way. Yilin looked at the death conditions of the corpses and discovered another thing. These people who attacked the Golden Temple are not the same group. The monks are still breaking through and going down the mountain, but corpses have appeared here. What does it mean? Quite simply, these corpses died at the hands of companions. In other words, they seem to be working together, but in fact they belong to different camps. Once they take action, they will not recognize their relatives and will kill anyone who is not in their own camp. This can also explain why hundreds of monks and bandits gathered together and were able to survive for 3 days and 2 nights. It seems that there is a reason why they are restraining each other. After understanding this, Yilin didn't panic anymore. After walking for a while, Yilin found a dog squatting in the grass furtively, pretending to be Voldemort. These 10 people were obviously thinking of the mantis stalks the cicada, and the oriole follows behind, but what they didn't expect was that under the behind the oriole, there are hunters. Yilin carefully felt the movement around him, carefully avoiding exposing more of his strength. After thinking for a moment, he took out a fuse situ spiral fire grenade, or spiral bomb for short, from his pocket. Like scattering beans on the ground, throw them into the grass. Call. After throwing it away, Yilin quickly ran a few steps, leaped forward, and lay down. Boom. 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 A continuous sound of explosions flooded the maple forest, and accompanied by violent shaking, the dozen or so Voldemorts squatting in the grass did not even see the back of the hunter. Lost consciousness, life or death uncertain. After easily dealing with this group of people, Yilin let out a joyful laugh. He clapped his hands and got up from the grass with a black face. When he was about to continue to the Golden Temple, a cold and indifferent voice suddenly sounded behind him, "Who are you?" Yilin looked back, with a suitable expression on her face. On his face, there were 3 parts of vigilance, 3 parts of surprise, 3 parts of surprise, and 1 part of complacency that did not need to be hidden at all. I saw a woman wearing a plain dress, carrying a square sword box behind her, standing quietly in the maple forest. The firelight ignited around her reflected on the woman's face, making her exquisite and delicate facial features extraordinarily three-dimensional. Her thin lips were pursed slightly, and there was no emotion on her face. The way she looked at Yilin was as if she were looking at a dead object, like wildflowers, stones, or crickets in the grass on the roadside. No ripples. "That's what I wanted to ask," Yilin said in a childish tone, raised her chin slightly, nuzzled at the woman, and asked, "You jumped out without making a sound, do you want to scare people to death?" "Jiang." The woman slowly stretched out 2 fingers, like a sharp sword. She opened and closed her eyes, with an imperceptible coldness in the depths of her eyes, and asked the second question, "Where do you learn from me?" When the woman stretched out her sword finger, a cold light shone in the sword box behind her, and the sound of the sword sounded like the chirping of cicadas on a summer night, buzzing in Yilin's ears. Yilin's expression changed, and she suddenly felt blood surge in her chest. Maybe she was too deeply involved in the drama, so she didn't hold back and spurted out a mouthful of blood. Oh my God! So awesome! Yilin also became a little more wary, secretly wondering if her pretentious steps were too unrestrained. But after spitting out the mouthful of blood, Yilin not only didn't feel uncomfortable, nor did she lose too much blood, but she felt that her breathing became much smoother. Practice indiscriminately and don't know how high the sky is. The woman shook her head, put down her sword, ignored Yilin, and walked past Yilin like a stranger. When the woman in plain skirt passed by Yilin, Yilin smelled a light floral fragrance, which was pure and natural. "Junior sister, you are finally here." Just as Yilin and the woman passed each other, sword light flashed in the night sky, and Jian Nanchun stepped on a flying sword and landed lightly in front of the woman. Jian Nanchun, who always liked to show off, had a hint of undetectable joy and shyness in his eyes. "Oh oh oh." Yilin didn't stand far away and understood immediately, making a strange noise. In Jian Nanchun's hand, there was also a man with a slumped expression. "It's Wang Xiahua." Jian Nanchun had never experienced the trolls from the 22nd century of modern civilization. Although he didn't understand how meaningful the O was, hearing the OO in his ears always made Jian Nanchun feel very uncomfortable. It feels comfortable, as if blood is dripping from the face, and as if the ears are pregnant. He followed the voice to Yilin, his expression obviously startled, and then he looked at Wang Xiaohu in his hand, and finally recognized it. "It's you." Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 818. The world is busy and crowded. From time to time, Jian Nanshan wore the name of Tianjian sect and walked in the world. He saw too many people of all kinds. He shouldn't have had an impression of two children he passed by just a week later. But that day, that street, in that rain, that punch, it left a deep impression on Jian Nanshan. So much so that whenever it rains heavily, he will recall the fear of the eggs being destroyed and people being killed. After he recognized Yilin, I subconsciously crossed my legs. Even though the pain between my legs is gone now. But somehow, looking at this innocent face, he felt a faint pain there. Why you? Jian Nanshan was in a bad mood and asked with a straight face. After recognizing Yilin, Jian Nanshan raised Wang Xiaohu in his hand a few centimeters. By the way, he also recognized Wang Xiaohu. It turned out to be these two boys. After thinking about it carefully, Jian Nanshan felt that something was wrong. It was a chance encounter, but now we meet. Why does it feel more like a conspiracy theory? Yilin lowered his head and replied in a calm tone, if I say it's a coincidence, the immortal won't believe it. Jian Nanshan was about to ask. The iceberg beauty who was called junior sister by Jian Nanshan, with a pair of beautiful crescent eyebrows frowning slightly, asked in a cold voice with an emotionless voice that made people feel uneasy as if they had bone spurs growing on their butt, Dakin, where is the eldest princess? Jian Nanshan's attention instantly shifted away from the origins of Yilin and Wang Xiaohu. Facing the junior sister's question, Jian Nanshan replied calmly, Jian Nanshan, don't worry, senior brother will take action, you don't need to worry about the safety of Princess Dakian. Lead the way. From the beginning to the end, the junior sister did not even look at Yilin and Wang Xiaohu. What about them? Jian Nanshan shook Wang Xiaohu in his hand. Whatever. The junior sister was obviously angry. Jian Nanshan imagined the junior sister's emotions from her expression, tone, and eyes. Immediately, Jian Nanshan thought for a moment. He couldn't just let the two of them go before asking questions, so he picked up one in each hand and flew towards the Golden Temple in a gust of wind. Senior sister Bingshan followed closely behind. Before she took off on the spot, Yilin noticed that the woman raised her hand slightly, and a gust of wind blew by. The fire that was blown up in the woods was extinguished at once, avoiding a fire. Tragic wildfires. Is this the ability of high-level monks? Yilin remained silent, pretending to be a good child, and was held in Jian Nanshan's hand. But he was secretly observing the two of them and pondering their personalities. Now he has successfully established a connection with Tianjian section. Whether this connection is good or bad, Yilin cannot tell at this moment. But they finally hooked up, right? This was a good start, and Yilin decided to play it by ear and wait and see. How did you get caught? Yilin was held up by his collar, and he simply took a ride on the Jian Nanshan. Feeling at ease, he folded his hands and chatted with Wang Xiaohu next to him. Brother Lin, aren't I thinking about going on a heroic journey to save people? Wang Xiaohu failed to act when he first came out of the world, and his frustration was written all over his face. Acting chivalrously? Yilin was stunned. What else was he thinking of asking? Jian Nanshan and junior sister Bingshan flew to the top of the mountain in the blink of an eye. Jian Nanshan casually threw the two of them aside, leaving behind a sentence, you can stay here in peace while junior sister and I enter the temple. Wait a minute, I have something to ask you. Jian Nanshan glanced at Yilin, with neither joy nor sadness on his face, and turned to lead his junior sister to find the princess. In his mind, business matters were of course more important. As for Yilin and Wang Xiaohu, they can't cause any trouble, so they should be left aside for now. Inside the Golden Temple, there were corpses everywhere, and the smell of blood entered their noses along with the mountain wind. After Jian Nanshan and the two men half walked, and entered the Golden Temple with full force, Yilin calmly asked Wang Xiaohu, and finally understood the cause and effect of the whole incident. Turn out to be. From that day on, Wang Xiaohu followed Yilin's command and stayed in the grass, watching the changes. But he didn't understand the actual situation at all, and he didn't know that there were other people living in the grass. He worked hard for 2 days and 2 nights, but nothing happened. Wang Xiaohu didn't even bring dry food or fresh water in his luggage. He was hungry for 2 days, and when he was thirsty, he sucked the dew on the leaves, which surprisingly kept Wang Xiaohu alive. Just now, shortly after nightfall, Wang Xiaohu finally couldn't bear it anymore, but he didn't know where Yilin was, so he swung his legs dizzily and climbed up towards the Golden Temple. It's a shame that Wang Xiaohu has been strong and talented since he was a child. Even after being hungry for 2 days, he was forced to hold his breath and climb up the mountain alive. After working hard to climb to the entrance of the Golden Temple, Wang Xiaohu finally stopped in Bangview. He rolled his eyes and fainted from hunger. Several monks were patrolling at the gate of the Golden Temple, and they found Wang Xiaohu lying on the roadside due to hunger. The monk was compassionate and carried Wang Xiaohu into the temple, fed him food and fresh water, and brought Wang Xiaohu back to life. The monk from Heian Temple knew what he was doing and knew that he was under siege. Among the monks of Ping'an Temple, one of the most virtuous and respected monks came to interrogate him, but he somehow fell in love with Wang Xiaohu and advised Wang Xiaohu, "The world of mortals is a sea of suffering, and the sea of suffering is boundless. You can only take refuge in my Buddhist teachings. You can be liberated." The implication is that he wants to persuade Wang Xiaohu to become a monk with honor, and become a monk who does not take advantage of human nature. Later, while Wang Xiaohu righteously rejected the eminent monk's hard work and good intentions, he directly knocked and imitated Yilin's throwing stones to ask for directions, and asked about the current predicament of Heian Temple. Wang Xiaohu, who was grateful to the monks for their kindness, felt heroic and decided to help the monks tide over the difficulties. A few hours later, a scene of hundreds of people attacking the mountain took place. Wang Xiaohu used the grenades given by Yilin to explode everywhere, and combined with the Buddhist skills of the monks, he actually cut a bloody path. But Wang Xiaohu is an ordinary person after all. In this chaotic situation, it is difficult to have the final say. The monks of Ping'an Temple died and were injured in the chaos, which was terrible. Then, Jian Nanchun came on the scene and easily controlled the situation, and the offender died under the sword in a snap. Brother Lin, this is the whole thing. Wang Xiaohu still felt a little uncomfortable when he thought about the deaths of those monks. Even after he was out of danger, he shook his head and sighed, but there was still no sign of relief on his face. He finally experienced for himself what Uncle Niu said in the story, "The rivers and lakes are dangerous and the sword has no eyes." Listening to the story narrated by Wang Xiaohu himself, Yilin felt like she was listening to a story. This? How could Wang Xiaohu's experience in the past 3 days be so touching and soul-stirring? If placed elsewhere, wouldn't it be a proper protagonist-level experience? It seems a bit outrageous. But Yilin also figured out why Voldemort, who had planned to attack the Golden Temple, suddenly couldn't stand still and took action one after another. It turned out that it was because of Wang Xiaohu. They squatted for 3 days and were already in a stage of mutual vigilance. Unexpectedly, Wang Xiaohu broke the rules and rushed forward alone. This, of course, made them unable to squat any longer, so they launched a general attack in unison. And in the midst of mutual suspicion, one side suspected that the other side did not follow the rules, and the other side suspected that the other side did not follow the martial ethics, which eventually evolved into a situation of fighting against each other. Yilin really wanted to laugh, but she couldn't. At this time, the sound of footsteps came from the temple. Yilin suddenly stopped talking to Wang Xiaohu and turned her eyes to the direction where the footsteps came from. "I saw Jian Nanchun and junior sister Bingshan coming out. The two of them walked side by side, their clothes fluttering, and they looked a bit like a Taoist couple. And right behind them, there was an old monk, with a gleam on his bald forehead. Only the empty socket of his left eye was left, and blood was still flowing out. As he walked, he was looking casually into his own eye. Wrap gauze around the eye wound. Next to the old monk, there was a fair young monk who looked about 15 or 16 years old. He had delicate features, red lips, and white teeth. However, he did not have the ring scar on his forehead like ordinary monks. He looked a bit nondescript. In the hands of the young monk, he held a brocade bag tightly. Everyone could see that this bag was very important to him. As soon as he saw the old monk coming out, Wang Xiaohu first subconsciously shrank behind Yulin, then reacted, took the initiative to meet him, and asked with concern, "Master Kuyi, are your eyes okay?" When Wang Xiaohu came up to greet him, Yulin's eyes fell on the face of the young monk next to Master Kuyi. While Yulin was looking at the little monk also noticed Yulin's gaze and looked at Yulin. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 819. After brief eye contact, the young monk lowered his head indifferently and looked away. What kind of experience can make a child who is only 15 or 16 years old have such eyes? Yulin looked at the other party's bald head, suddenly understood something, and remained silent. And aside, Zen Master Kuyi held Wang Xiaohu's hand tightly and did not let go for a long time. After being rejected by Wang Xiaohu again, he looked quite regretful. What a pity, what a pity, what a pity. The old monk looked up to the sky and sighed, looking like he had no love left in his life. Wang Xiaohu felt even more uncomfortable now. This is a favor from Emil. Without that meal, Wang Xiaohu would starve to death. But he can't just become a monk just to repay his kindness, right? He is a single member of the Wang family. If you become a monk, won't the Wang family be extinct? Either way. If parents knew about it, why not run out of Qingnu village and beat themselves to death? Wang Xiaohu thought of this, pulled out his hand with force, and comforted, Master, in fact, Xiaohu can enter Ping'an temple even if he is not a monk. Oh? How about it? When Zen Master Kuyi heard this, was there any compromise? So he became interested. Wang Xiaohu just said casually, not knowing there was any compromise. He saw that Kuyi Zen temple did not seem to give up its intention to win him over to the Buddha, so he looked at Yulin as if asking for help. Yulin thought this scene was very interesting, so she added, how about being a sweeping monk who works for wages and doesn't worship Buddha? Zen Master Kuyi. Wang Xiaohu. Speaking of which, Jian Nanchun stepped forward and looked directly at Yulin, who are you? When Jian Nanchun asked this question, Yulin had not had time to answer. Junior sister Bingshan's indifferent face showed a rare fluctuation. The corners of her mouth raised slightly, and she said softly, he is a half-hearted monk. Is senior brother really ignorant or pretending to be ignorant? Monk, Jian Nanchun's face changed when he heard this, his eyes narrowed, and Yulin instantly felt that something was scanning his body. Yulin resisted the urge to punch Jian Nanchun again, lowered her head, said nothing, and pretended not to know. After a while, Jian Nanchun's calmness that he had been deliberately maintaining finally lost its strength, and his expression turned ugly. How is that possible? I was attacked at Sanpingsuan a few days ago. Senior brother was attacked. Junior sister Bingshan frowned, and the implication was, I didn't hear you talk about this. Jian Nanchun knew that he had accidentally let it slip, but he quickly explained, Senior brother, what you mean is that when I was sitting at Sanpingsuan, enjoying tea and waiting for my junior sister, I met the two little kids once, but that day at that time, I clearly used my spiritual sense to detect them, and they didn't have the aura that a monk should have. So, how about now, Junior sister asked again. Jian Nanchun had no shame to look at his junior sister anymore. He shook his legs and murmured to himself, how is it possible? Now this kid has a faint aura on his body, and he has already started to practice Qi. In just a few days. The junior sister nodded. It seemed that the senior brother was not mistaken, but that there was something fishy about this boy. She once again stared at Yulin and Wang Xiahua with a scrutinizing look. Wang Xiahua might not feel anything, but Yulin felt very uncomfortable. He had only stared at others with this look before, and no one had ever dared to stare at him with this look. But Yulin had a good attitude, so it was no big deal if she was bitten by a dog. After thinking for a moment, Yulin generously took out the ancient family book from his arms and threw it to Jian Nanchun, the secret book passed down from generation to generation. I took the time to read it in the past few days. Somehow, I got it right with practice. Jian Nanchun fished it out casually, and the tattered Lin family ancient books fell into his hands. Junior sister Bingshan seemed to be very interested in Yulin's origins and moved slightly closer to Jian Nanchun. Jian Nanchun smelled the fragrance of flowers wafting from the junior sister next to him, and felt a little ecstatic. But he didn't dare to show it on his face. So Jian Nanchun, with a straight face and an upright attitude, began to look through the ancient books that Yulin handed over. At first, Jian Nanchun didn't take it seriously, but as he turned over it, he found something was wrong. This so-called ancestral secret book is short of words, obscure and nonsensical. If he hadn't been an inner monk of Tianjian sect and read many classics in the sect, he might not be able to understand it. Of ancient Chinese. Is it really possible that anyone can practice breathing with this book? Impossible. Jian Nanchun shook his head vigorously, subconsciously thinking it was impossible. Anyone with any brain would not find an incomplete ancient book to practice. That is courting death. After reading it for a long time, Jian Nanchun didn't see any mystery. He just thought it was a tattered book. Finally, Jian Nanchun said quietly, "You really dare to practice?" As expected, his aura was chaotic and he didn't appear to be from an orthodox Taoist origin, so I didn't take it to heart. Junior sister Bingshan nodded, as if she understood something. It doesn't matter, it's fate, and those who are destined will get it. When Jian Nanchun said this, his expression was calm, but his tone was somehow sour. Jian Nanchun readily returned the Lin family's ancient book to Yulin. In his opinion, this ancient book was placed in the Tianjian section. It would be fine if it was complete and had reference significance, but an incomplete secret book was worthless. He ignored Yulin and turned to look at the young monk hiding next to the old monk. He smiled slightly and said, "Senior of our sect, I have a slight relationship with your elders. Jian Nanchun, a disciple of the Tianjian sect's sword generation, was ordered by the section. I will escort you to the coast of the East China Sea and to the Fairy Mountain." When the young monk heard this, he lowered his head, not looking at the crowd, but shook his head vigorously. He had been silent, and finally said a complete sentence, "Ben, I won't go." Yulin was slightly startled. He had only suspected it before, but when the little monk spoke with that clear voice, Yulin directly confirmed it. This monk is the current princess of Dakian. Who would have thought that a dignified eldest princess of the Dakian dynasty would shave off her hair, pretend to be a monk, hide in a group of monks, and go all the way south? Great concealment and baldness. Yulin secretly gave a thumbs up to the person who came up with this hiding method. But here's the problem, it was so well hidden, why was it exposed? Yulin smiled, but didn't point it out. Jian Nanchun found it difficult to understand the eldest princess's rejection. Being able to enter the Heavenly Sword sect is a good thing that you can't even kneel down to get. If Tianjian sect was really so easy to enter, why did he have to pray for 10 days and 10 nights on the shore of the East China Sea? Junior sister Bingshan didn't talk much. When she saw the eldest princess's refusal, she didn't bother to explain. She directly stretched out a finger and tapped the eldest princess. Suddenly, the eldest princess froze and couldn't move. Junior sister Bingshan opened the sword box, and a long sword exuding a frightening cold air floated into the air. Junior sister Bingshan held the eldest princess in one hand and landed on the long sword. The whole set of movements is done in one go, extremely free and unrestrained. It's not a good place to stay for a long time. Junior sister Bingshan said. A cold light flashed in the night sky, and in an instant it turned into a stream of light and disappeared into the northern horizon. When Jian Nanchun saw his junior sister leaving without saying a word, he also launched his flying sword. I saw that his magic weapon was actually the oil umbrella. When the oil umbrella was shaken, its shape changed and turned into an ancient sword. He hurriedly stepped on the flying sword, ready to chase his junior sister. Seeing Jian Nanchun running away, Yilin suddenly became unhappy. If I really let you run away, wouldn't I give you a slap in the face? So Yilin grabbed Jian Nanchun, who was just about to take off, pulled his sleeve and said with a smile, "Take me with you." Jian Nanchun frowned. He was concerned about his junior sister's whereabouts, for fear of getting lost. Junior sister's flying sword Hans Huang is one of the best flying swords in the Tianjian sect and is famous for its speed. He is going to be late and may not be able to catch up. So Jian Nanchun prepared to use his strength to scare away the children who were misbehaving, and said in a cold voice, "Don't be so silly. If you want to enter Tianjian sect, we will see you at the shore of the East China Sea in 2 years." Wang Xiahua was dumbfounded on the sidelines. He had never seen Brother Lin so persistent. Yilin rolled his eyes. If he didn't say anything, Jian Nanchun would probably fly away. His mind turned around, and he said directly, "Do you want to sleep with your junior sister?" Ah! Jian Nanchun bent his straight back suddenly and almost fell off the flying sword in take-off state. After holding it in for a long time, Jian Nanchun's entire face was half black and half pink with anger. He stepped on the flying sword with one foot and touched the ground with one foot. He couldn't walk or not walk. Finally, Jian Nanchun, who had been holding it in for a long time, finally pointed his trembling finger at Yilin's hateful smiling face and whispered, You, ignorant child, how can you accuse someone of innocence out of thin air?" Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 820. At last. The development of the situation evolved into a situation that Jian Nanchun had never expected. He stepped on the tip of Fijian, and the shameless kid named Lin was sitting on Fijian's butt, enjoying himself in the air, closing his eyes and enjoying the cold wind at high altitude. Behind him, Zen Master Kuya, who had bandaged his wounds, released a huge wooden fish-shaped magic weapon, on which sat the old monk and Wang Xiahua, who looked excited. And his strangers should not enter little junior sister Bingshan. He had already disappeared with the eldest princess. There is a person standing on a flying sword and another person sitting behind it. It looks a bit crowded. Because Jian Nanchun suffered a mental shock, he was a little confused and his thoughts were confused. He controlled the flying sword to fly forward unsteadily. Yilin felt the rhythm of the flying sword from behind and couldn't help but remind him, "Concentrate on driving and don't crash." Jian Nanchun couldn't understand Yilin's weird dialect. But he understood the meaning. Jian Nanchun turned around and glared at Yilin, thinking, "Isn't it because of you?" At this time, Jian Nanchun couldn't help but recall the conversation not long ago. "Do you want to sleep with your junior sister? You, ignorant child, how can you accuse someone of innocence out of thin air? Then let me put it another way, down to earth, do you really want to form a divine couple with your junior sister, go hand in hand, live freely in the mortal world, and only envy mandarin ducks but not immortals?" His Jian Nanchun took a breath of cold air. "Do you want to think? Then I'll help you sleep. Ah no, I'll marry you as my junior sister, and you can help me enter the Heavenly Sword sect. How about that? Hey, just you. Jian Nanchun didn't believe it at the time. What you said was unfounded. Why should I believe you? Yilin took out the Agarwood token, just because I can get the VIP status of Wangxiang Tower within 7 days, Agarwood token. Why should I? It's because of my ability. No one understands a woman's mind better than me. Now Jian Nanchun was a little convinced. The Agarwood order from Wangxiang Tower was not given out casually. In layman's terms, it's a limited edition, one is given away and one is missing. People from the Tianjian sect can't bear to enter a brothel. So Jian Nanchun had only heard of this thing, not even him. Actually, Yilin saw Jian Nanchun's excitement and poured some more hot oil on it. You and your junior sister look good looking and talented. You can tell from the first glance that they are a match made in heaven. Even if I don't do anything, you will become a Taoist couple. After all, it is a matter of course and let nature take its course, but with my help, maybe this process can be shortened by a few years and less tortuous. Wouldn't it be nice? Yilin intertwined his hands and made a vivid gesture, and you don't have to do anything for me. Just take me along to the coast of the East China Sea and open a back door for me to enter the Tianjian gate. Open the back door. He knows about the back door, but in this matter, what does opening the back door mean? The meaning is, senior brother Jian Nanchun, as the top elite of Tianjian sect, on the premise of not violating conscience, sect rules, and principles, will give a small advantage to future junior brothers to make things smoother. Yilin gave an explanation of the term. Jian Nanchun didn't know what he was thinking at the time. Are you thinking about your junior sister, your partner, or the back door? He nodded like a ghost, which was regarded as agreement. Hello, senior brother. In response, Yilin squinted her eyes and smiled, very happy. Anyway, that's what happened. As for Zen Master Kuyi and Wang Xiaohu behind him, it was purely incidental. When Wang Xiaohu heard that Yilin was going to the coast of the East China Sea on Jian Nanchun's Shunfeng sword, he immediately became anxious and shouted that he wanted to go with him. They left the village to explore the world together. Brother Lin, why did you leave me behind? Jian Nanchun made it clear that his flying sword was overloaded and could not carry 3 people. Seeing the opportunity, Zen Master Kuye said that he would send the Buddha to the west and escort the eldest princess to the coast of the East China Sea. Then he caught up with Wang Xiaohu. Wang Xiaohu didn't think too much. Yilin could see through the old monk's thoughts at a glance. From this point of view, the old monk still did not give up and wanted to recruit Wang Xiaohu to become a monk. Then, Jian Nanchun hitched a ride on Yilin, and the old monk hitched a ride on Wang Xiaohu, all the way north. Traveling in the air is fast, traveling thousands of miles in a day is easy. Each city shrank to the size of a model, passing by under the feet of a few people. Wang Xiaohu had never experienced such excitement before. He clutched Zen Master Kuyu's cassock the whole time, feeling excited and scared at the same time. Yilin sat on Jian Nanchun's Fijian butt, very calm. He's not afraid of falling either. At worst, he can just fly by himself. In fact, Yilin was secretly pondering the principle of flying sword flying. The principle of Yilin's flying with the help of telekinesis is completely different from that of flying sword. To give an example, it's like helicopters and jets. One is to rise with the help of airflow, and the other is to glide with the help of jet airflow. When Yilin flies, she uses telekinesis to support her own weight to achieve the effect of flying, but the speed is not very fast. As for the flying sword is really flying, which is very fantasy. Yilin felt the speed of the flying sword and became even more yearning for the skills he was practicing. He felt that this was an unfamiliar subject. For Yilin, the stranger the subject, the better, which means that it is full of unknowns, giving him a desire to explore. The attraction of knowledge lies in the endless unknown. On the flying sword, Yilin murmured to himself. When he raised his head again, the young man's eyes were filled with excitement. Along the way, the old monk and Wang Xiaohu sat on the wooden fish ritual vessel and chatted endlessly. He kept talking to Wang Xiaohu about the benefits of practicing Buddhism. What can be done to have a pure mind and few desires, to have no desires and desires, to have inner peace, to prolong life, etc. At first Wang Xiaohu refused and covered his ears. But later, he was really tired of covering up and listened to a section involuntarily. Zen Master Kuya has advanced cultivation. While controlling the wooden fish to fly as steadily as an experienced driver, he can also clasp his hands and chant mysterious scriptures. Listening to hundreds of meters away, even through the howling wind, the words Amitabha, my Buddha is compassionate, the 6 roots are pure pierced the eardrum like a magic spell, and Yilin admired the penetrating power. I don't know if the little tiger can withstand it. Yilin sighed secretly and silently mourned for Wang Xiaohu for a moment. 3 days later, 4 people were dropped off outside a town. This place is called Yuchen, which is 1 level larger than Shangping County. A few people put away their magical powers and pretended to be ordinary monks, buying food, fresh water, and inquiring about information in the city. Jian Nanchun and Monk Guy became so successful in cultivation that they were almost able to live without eating for 10.5 days. But not Yilin and Wang Xiaohu. When they were growing up, they would starve to death if they didn't eat or drink. Not long after Yilin entered the city, she suddenly remembered that she had no money. So he could only sneak outside the city and release 3 mother spirits to explore the surrounding area. I don't know whether the other party was unlucky or Yilin was lucky. Yilin discovered a trace of thieves' activities 20 miles outside Yuchen. Following the footsteps, Yilin touched it, and oh, it turned out to be a big fish, a band of hundreds of robbers. It was so powerful that it could occupy a mountain. Yilin didn't want to be implicated in the crime of killing, so she slipped directly into the bandit group's warehouse, stole a package of silver, and left without leaving a name. No wonder so many people like to do chivalry, rob the rich and give to the poor. This feels really good. It not only enriches the pockets, but also enriches the spiritual needs. Yilin's luggage was heavy and full of money. When he returned to Yuchen, he was so dusty that he didn't bother to change clothes and dress up. He was familiar with driving, straightened his back, and went straight to Wangxiang Tower alone. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 821. Yuchen Wangxiang Tower is obviously a level higher than Wangxiang Tower in Shangping County. The decor is even more luxurious. There were 4 girls soliciting customers in front of the door. The door is spacious and there is an endless stream of drunken guests. Yilin kept her head silent and rushed in. The front girl looked at Yilin and wanted to come up to him and ask about his origins, but she didn't expect Yilin to move so quickly and skillfully, and collapsed in 1 step. They didn't stop. So impatient. The girls at the front were all stunned, but since they didn't stop him, they didn't stop him either. After all, Wangxiang Building is a place where people open their doors for business, and there is no benefit in offending the guests. Entering the brothel, singing and dancing, a sense of luxury hits your face. Yilin looked around and quickly recognized the shopkeeper of Wangxianglu. Speaking of which, the shopkeepers of Wangxiang Tower are not difficult to identify. The most charming woman who looks the most like a veteran of Huasong is her. Look at this treasure of mine. Yilin approached the woman, opened her clothes, and secretly revealed a corner of the agar-wood order. The shopkeeper of Wangxiang Tower in Yuchen, named Dan Niang, was originally dealing with customers. She was startled by the childish voice of a young man coming from behind her, but then when she caught a glimpse of the baby exposed in the young man's clothes, she was even more shocked. His face changed. Agar-wood order. Without saying a word, the damsel brought the ordinary young man to the secret compartment. With the agar-wood order, Yulin didn't need to take any detours this time, and could directly express his intention. Madame Dan looked Yulin up and down, and finally her face turned slightly red, and she said tentatively, "I forgive Madame for being bold, but dare I ask if the immortal is, Senior Lin Yi of Tianjian sect?" Now Yulin was extremely puzzled. "You are so well informed." When the satin lady heard Yulin's acquiescence, her face turned even redder, her beautiful eyes looking forward to the waves, so alluring that they seemed to be able to drip water. Niang covered her mouth with a smile and answered the question inappropriately. "Senior Lin is, quite famous in the industry." What Yulin didn't know was that Xiu Niang deliberately broadcast the news about Yulin's ninth prince in order to distance herself from the eldest princess's news. The implication is that the reason why Xiu Niang gave the Agarwood order was not because of anything else, but because this young man was too strong and she couldn't resist or grasp it. This news was so outrageous that in just 10 days, it spread among the circles of Wangxiang Tower. Everyone knows one thing. A strange young man came out of Tianjianmen. It seems ordinary, but it can be generous. The key is to be able to 9 times. Tianjian sect has always been aloof and isolated, and has almost no contact with Qingluan tree. After all, the two Suanmen are not on the same level. But Lin Yi's appearance set the girls on fire. "This is the thigh of Tianjianmen. I guess the embroiderer said something." Yulin nodded, and without asking too much, he took out a large handful of heavy silver from his bag and scattered it on the table like trash. When the satin lady saw so much silver, her eyes immediately straightened, and she looked directly at the young man in front of her. She instantly became hundreds of times more handsome. So the satin lady crossed her legs, looked respectful but a little shy, and asked the young man's purpose. Half an hour later, Yulin hurriedly walked out of Wangxiang Tower. At the agreed time and place, Yulin met Jian Nanchun again. When they met, Zen Master Kuya was still holding on to Wang Xiaohua, and was persuading people to worship the Buddha. When Jian Nanchun saw Yulin, he said with a straight face and solemn eyes, "Let's go, I found out about the junior sister. She probably passed by Yuchen yesterday. We are not far from the junior sister and the others." Yulin spoke leisurely, and the information she gave was several times more detailed than what Jian Nanchun had learned. 50 miles away, Malu Mountain. Jian Nanchun was stunned. "How did you know?" Yulin proudly waved the Agarwood order in front of Jian Nanchun. "Senior brother, don't forget your junior brother's specialties." Along the way, every time Yulin deliberately called senior brother Jian Nanchun deliberately did not answer. But this time, in his anxiety, Jian Nanchun didn't bother to deny the relationship between senior fellow apprentice. Now that Yulin had found out the information, he quickly took a few people and hurried out of the city. They were in the bustling city at the moment, and when Yulin said senior brother, Jian Nanchun did not deny it, and it confirmed the relationship between the two as senior brothers. In the market alleys, countless seemingly inconspicuous people quietly took the scene as news and spread it, and it soon spread back to Wangxiang Tower. Now, Yulin's identity was confirmed in the circle, and no one doubted it anymore. As soon as they left Yuchen, Zen Master Jian Nanchun and Kuyi sacrificed their magic weapons at the same time and jumped into the air. Wang Xiaohu originally wanted to touch Jian Nanchun's flying sword, but Yulin pushed him into Zen Master Kuyi's arms. Wang Xiaohu looked at Yulin blankly, as if he was about to cry tears of blood. The two monks took 2 young boys who had just left the world and headed west. Malu Mountain is located to the west of Yuchen. It is said that monsters are everywhere at night, so there are rumors that monsters are entrenched there, and ordinary people dare not approach it easily. It was only 50 miles away, and for the 2 monks, it was within the blink of an eye. In less than half an hour, the 4 of them flew all the way to the sky above Malu Mountain. It turns out that not only at night, but also during the day, the place is shrouded in mist. When approaching the sky above Malu Mountain, the expressions of Jian Nanchun and Zen Master Kuya changed at the same time, and they landed on the outskirts of Malu Mountain. A demonic spirit. Yulin noticed the strange movements between the two of them and couldn't help but ask. What he actually wanted to say was, "It doesn't look like it." Although Yulin is not very familiar with Suanman cultivation, the atmosphere around Malu Mountain is very different from Qingnu Mountain. The entire Qingnu Mountain is filled with the demonic smell wafting from the Tigris by Chuchu, but there is no such smell in Malu Mountain. No, Jian Nanchun and Zen Master Kuya looked at each other and shook their heads. Someone is setting up a trap here. Amitabha, Zen Master Kuya clasped his hands together and made a Buddha's name. Someone has set up a confusion formation here. In my humble opinion, it looks like a magic method. MaleProtagonist Temple? This is impossible. Jian Nanchun actually felt that it was like a magic method, but he turned pale, shook his head, and said expressionlessly, "Thousands of years ago, there were 3 gates of Buddhism, Taoism, and demons, Yanfuzhou, and MaleProtagonist. The palace and the Tianjian sect have already made a contract, never to get involved in the secular world, and not to interfere in worldly disputes, otherwise the other 2 sects will surround and kill them. For thousands of years, the disciples of the upper 3 sects have followed this 1,000-year agreement, and from then on no violation. How could MaleProtagonist Palace take the risk of offending our heavenly sword sect and Yanfuzhou and cause chaos in the world? The upper 3 gates represent the 3 top powers of Buddhism, Taoism, and demonism, namely Yanfuzhou, Tianjian sect, and MaleProtagonist Palace. Regardless of whether they are human monks or monsters, no one in this circle knows these 3 names. Even though the Yuzan family has rarely stepped out of the world over the past 1,000 years, they still left behind sporadic legends. Jian Nanchun knows the rules of the industry. He knew that the 3 gates had signed a 1,000-year agreement. This agreement ended the 1,000-year battle. In the past 1,000 years, it cannot be said that the world is peaceful, but the 3 upper sects have been far away from the world and developed secretly. When Zen Master Kuya mentioned the demon sect, Jian Nanchun instantly remembered this long-lost name. He is still relatively inexperienced, and he has only occasionally heard a few words about the various things in MaleProtagonist Palace from the elders in the sect. But even those few words were enough to make Jian Nanchun think about the horror of MaleProtagonist Temple. Putting aside their strength, the people in MaleProtagonist Palace are demons through and through. They act in a ruthless manner, act recklessly and without restraint, and their disagreements can lead to rivers of blood. Zen Master Kuya added, since the Millennium Agreement, MaleProtagonist Temple has been hiding from the world. The remaining forces in the demon sect have been forced to withdraw from the central plains, and most of them have hid in the Shiwen Mountains in the southwest, or in the boundless desert in the far west. Or, across the vast sea, to the Nanfang continent. It stands to reason that in the Daqian dynasty, the magic sect has declined, so their whereabouts are rarely seen. While listening to the conversation between the two, Yilin gradually completed the situation of the world in her mind. At this time, Yilin saw Zen Master Kuya and Jian Nanchun saying something to each other, and the underlying meaning of their words seemed to be "this is unscientific," so Yilin couldn't help laughing and added, "The world is prosperous, everyone is prosperous, go for the benefit. As long as the benefits are sufficient, nothing is impossible. Look at my senior brother, hasn't the high-altitude Tianjian sect also appeared in the earthly world? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 823. Zen Master Kuya and Jian Nanchun looked at each other. They thought Yilin was right. But, they thought it was too vulgar. If you give more, can you do whatever you want? However, other than that, there is no other reason that can explain why the people from the demon sect took the risk to appear here and intercepted several people from chasing the eldest princess. Don't say any more, I'm going to save my junior sister first. Jian Nanchun started practicing without saying a word. I saw him holding the spell with his fingers, a soft light glowing on the flying sword, and the sword fell towards the forest. In an instant, a wave of light visible to the naked eye swayed from the contact point between the flying sword and the air. There was an invisible barrier similar to a cover, blocking Jian Nanchun's flying sword. Stab, can't it be broken? Jian Nanchun's face changed slightly, his breath became slightly disordered, and his eyes became more worried. I'm here to help my little friend. Zen Master Kui crossed his legs and floated up, his whole body igniting with an upright golden flame. Good. When Jian Nanchun saw Zen Master Kuya urging the Buddhist teachings, his brows furrowed and then relaxed, and he didn't say much. He just nodded and said hello. A Taoist elite disciple and a Buddhist Zen master were in the air, activating the magic formula at the same time. The soft white light and the Buddhist golden light complement each other and occupy the sky on both sides. A sword and a bowl magnified in the sky and fell with a crash. Boom. After a violent vibration, Wang Xiaohua, as an ordinary person, was directly thrown several meters away by the energy fluctuations. Yilin sat cross-legged on the spot, wishing she could pack melon seeds and watch the show while doing so. In the air, the clothes of both of them were fluttered by hunting. Zen Master Kuya was already injured. After forcibly activating the Buddhist skills, his face became a little pale. But at this moment, he suddenly lowered his head and glanced at Yilin sitting on the ground, and saw that Yilin remained still and thoughtful in the aftermath. The formation set up by the devil was broken into a big hole by the combined efforts of the two. The thick fog that was originally trapped in the forest leaked out from the big hole and condensed into a column of fog that would not disperse in the sky. It was extremely evil. Call out. After Jian Nanchun and Zen Master Kuya broke through the confusion formation, a few breaths later, a cold air swept out of the forest along with a ray of white light. Brother, catch it. I saw junior sister Bingshan stepping on the void, stepping on the frost sword, her plain robe shook, and several thin figures swung towards Jian Nanchun. Jian Nanchun was stunned and quickly used his strength to catch those figures. After taking a closer look, Jian Nanchun discovered that they were actually several children in ragged clothes with many bruises on their bodies. The children had their eyes closed tightly and passed out, unable to respond to calls. Except for a few strange children, the eldest princess was safe and sound. She hugged the precious little brocade bag and landed safely under the protection of Jian Nanchun. Junior sister. Jian Nanchun only glanced at the few people on the ground, then stopped looking and turned to look at his junior sister. But after junior sister Bingshan left the child and the eldest princess behind, her eyes were fixed on the depths of the forest, her hands behind her back, her clothes floating in the air, motionless. At this time, Yilin noticed that one of the sleeves of junior sister Bingshan's hand had been torn off. On her snow-white arm, there was a dark handprint, which was hideous and terrifying. There was even a hint of black blood on the handprint. It was dripping out and looked wrong. He is indeed a genius among the elite generation of Tianjian sect, and is known as a rare genius in a century. Chao Rushuan has some abilities. In the fog, along with the cold laughter, a dark figure appeared silently. It was a man who was completely hidden in a black robe. His age, gender, and age were indistinguishable. But listening to the voice, one could vaguely guess that it was a perverted old man, and one could tell at a glance that he was not a good person. The rats from the demon sect hide their heads and show their tails. Chao Rushuan frowned slightly and looked at the other party with a hint of disdain in her tone. Demon sect? Little friend, you are exaggerating. The old man in black robe and masked face shook his head and said with a smile, I have no family and no section. I am just a casual cultivator who knows a few superficial techniques to earn some hard-earned money. Oh, Chao Rushuan's eyes flashed slightly, and his eyes condensed. With your cultivation level as a senior, Do you still care about mere earthly money? Who is not greedy for money, women, and status? The old man in black robe glanced at his identity completely. From inside his robe, Yulin clearly felt a cold gaze sweeping over them, but it was he quickly moved away and said with a smile, I didn't expect that you, a child who seems to be just and awe-inspiring, brought helpers. Do you want to bully the younger ones with more and bring shame on me? Chao Rushuan was not persuaded by the old man's words, and replied calmly, it is human nature for my fellow disciples to worry about my junior sister and come to investigate. Compared with the seniors who kidnapped children and lured the juniors to come here, the juniors it's too far off. How dare you, a mere junior from Tianjian sect, show off your rhetoric in front of me? When I traveled across the Xian realm, you were not even born yet. Sure enough, the real person cannot be judged by his appearance. Chao Rushuan looks taciturn and cold, but when he sprays people, he is unambiguous. These words were spoken in front of so many people. Although it was true, the old man felt that he was losing face. Suddenly, without warning, he stretched out a palm from under his robe, shot it in the air, and suddenly took action. In an instant, spiritual energy surged between heaven and earth, and a black cloud suddenly appeared in the otherwise peaceful sky. The black cloud condensed into a huge palm, pressing down on everyone in the sky. Brother, you go first. Chao Rushuan seemed to have expected that the old man in black robes had no martial ethics. When the other party made a move, she reacted instantly. The sword box opened, and rays of cold light suddenly bloomed from the sword box like a peacock opening its tail. Countless sword lights raised his hand and tore open the huge black hand in the sky. In an instant, the surrounding temperature dropped sharply. As Yulin and Wang Xiahua breathed out, they suddenly exhaled a burst of white mist. The breath turned into frost crystals, as if the cold winter was coming. Junior sister. Jian Nanchun became anxious. Seeing the black-robed old man and Chao Rushuan fighting, he rolled up his sleeves and prepared to step forward to help. Countless sword lights in the sword box tore apart the black clouds. After the sky regained its brightness, Rushuan's frost sword exuding cold air pointed toward Jian Nanchun from afar. Chao Rushuan said in a cold voice without any doubt, Senior brother, let's go without further ado. Yulin looked at the murderous Chao Rushuan and subconsciously translated what she said to Jian Nanchun, if I don't say anything for the third time, I will chop you to death if you don't leave. That's probably what it means. So Jian Nanchun, who had just rolled up his sleeves, gritted his teeth and stopped forcing himself. In the blink of an eye, Chao Rushuan's figure moved, and shadows flashed, and he was suddenly fighting with the black-robed old man in the air. I saw bursts of turmoil in the sky, the cold air and the black mist were separated on both sides, colliding with each other, and it was impossible to win or lose for a while. Under the drastic temperature difference, the light in the sky was refracted, and distorted colorful light curtains appeared. Black mist was interspersed in the colorful light curtains. This scene made the eldest princess and Wang Xiahua look dull and confused. How to react? The old man in black robe was getting farther and farther away from Chao Rushuan. Jian Nanchun struggled for a while, but finally gave in and listened to his junior sister's words. He took out 3 paper cranes and injected spiritual energy into them. The 3 paper cranes suddenly shook as if they came to life, turning into big paper cranes and flapping their wings. When Yulin saw that Jian Nanchun still had something, he asked curiously, Senior brother, you have these treasures, why didn't you take them out earlier? Ha, Jian Nanchun frowned, but smiled deliberately, disciples of the Tianjian sect will never rely on things outside themselves unless they have no choice. Yulin thought for a while and asked, is it expensive? Jian Nanchun. Wang Xiahua, the eldest princess, and Yulin rode on paper cranes. Zen Master Kuya took out the big wooden fish and placed several unconscious children on the wooden fish. Jian Nanchun stepped on the flying sword. The group of people headed north. After a while, they finally moved away from the Malaysian area, and the surrounding temperature gradually warmed up. Seeing that it was safe here, Jian Nanchun breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, when he thought about the uncertainty of his junior sister's life or death, his heart lifted again. Go if you want. Yilin saw through Jian Nanchun's little thoughts. When the other party hesitated, Yilin chuckled and took the initiative to give the other party a step. Okay, when Jian Nanchun heard this, he seemed to have been pushed. He no longer hesitated and said directly to Zen Master Kuya, they will be handed over to the master. These children should be children from nearby counties. Place them properly later. Master Lao Kuya will escort my junior brother, escort the son and the eldest princess all the way eastward. After thinking about it, Jian Nanchun handed a sign in the shape of a wooden sword to Yilin after hesitating for a while. This is the sword order, a symbol of my Tianjian sex identity. If my junior sister and I were delayed due to the thieves' attack, all right, you hurry to the coast of the East China Sea. Activate the sword order at the coast of the East China Sea, and there will be disciples from the Tianjian sect to respond. After saying that, Jian Nanchun instantly stepped on his flying sword and flew towards the junior sister whom he cared about so much. After Jian Nanchun left, Yilin squinted her eyes and showed a half-smiling expression. Zen Master Kuya stopped talking. Wang Xiaohu scratched his head, always feeling that the atmosphere was a bit strange. Well, what are you staring at? Bald man, I'm talking about you. There are 2 fruit trees over there. Master and I are thirsty. You go and pick some fruits and come back to quench your thirst. Yilin pointed at Wang Xiaohu and the bald princess. I won't go. The eldest princess refused without saying a word. She hugged her luggage tightly and refused to get off the paper crane. Wang Xiaohu has been following Yilin for so long, and he can't see the little look in Yilin's eyes. Suddenly Wang Xiaohu didn't talk nonsense, he locked the man directly, carried the eldest princess and walked out. The eldest princess was furious, but she was no match for Wang Xiaohu. She was held up by the neck and couldn't move. Come on, master, I have been studying Buddhism recently and I am a little confused. I wonder if master can come over and give some guidance to the ignorant boy. Yilin waved to Zen Master Kuya. Zen Master Kuya opened his mouth, but he still held up a corner of his cassock and walked off the wooden fish unsteadily. After Master Kuya approached, Yilin pointed at the children who were breathing smoothly and closing their eyes tightly, and sneered. Now, master, do you think those children look a little bit older? Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 825. Snap, 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 snap. Yilin finished speaking. The quiet old faces of the children lying motionless on the wooden fish suddenly looked ferocious. Their bones all over their bodies made crisp sounds. In the blink of an eye, several children grew from the size of 7 or 8 years old to the size of adults at a speed visible to the naked eye. Damn it! An old boy had a hoarse voice and was full of murderous intent. A black scimitar floated out from the center of his eyebrows, and his eyes suddenly turned sharp. He looked at the eldest princess who was picking fruits in the distance, feeling a little unwilling. According to the original plan, someone was responsible for luring away the 2 thighs of Tianjianmen respectively. They were left lying on the ground and sullenly. They only needed to suddenly rise up and kill the old bald donkey who was still capable of fighting, and they could successfully lead them away. Take the eldest princess. But plans can't compare to changes. I didn't expect that their sophisticated plan would be seen through by an ordinary-looking young man. Hateful. But it doesn't matter, there are so many of them. Go. Kill the bald donkey first. Several people were obviously using the same set of techniques, and they cooperated with each other. The black energy filled the air. They even ignored Yilin and rushed towards Zen Master Kuya at the same time. After Yilin's reminder, Zen Master Kuya also noticed that something was wrong with several children. Amitabha. He was about to take action. Yilin is faster than Zen Master Kuya. He suddenly took out two revolvers that had been ready for use. Behind Zen Master Kuya, he pointed at the demonic barrier with teeth and claws in the air, and sighed softly. Times have changed. Yilin confirmed one more thing. Monks and monks, regardless of whether they are Buddhas, Taoists, or demons, their most basic physiological structure is still human. The brain, heart, and other vital organs are all weaknesses. If it explodes, it will die. For now, yes. Yilin has not encountered a supernormal level existence yet. While he was handling the corpse skillfully, under the astonished eyes of Zen Master Kuya, Yilin calmly clapped his hands, but he was thinking about the fighting power shown by Chaorugjiu and the old man in black robes not long ago in Malu Mountain, and secretly a hierarchical analogy assessment with the apostles. In this world, there is a unique power system. But the apostle travels through all the heavens and worlds and has seen a lot. No matter what kind of power system it is, in the final analysis, it is strengthening the apostles themselves as people. The fighting power displayed by Chaorushuan and the black-robed old man was far beyond the ordinary extraordinary apostles, and they seemed to have faintly touched the level of the second layer of restriction locks. Is there a way for me to break through the second level of spiritual lock here? Breaking through the second restriction is a scenery that Yilin has never seen before. Yilin was thinking about this possibility. Yilin thought of everything in the Age of Gods again. Thinking of Myrian's sword. That sword that opened up the world. I couldn't help but sigh again, my thoughts flying. Aside. Zen Master Kuyi looked at the young man with a lively expression and was dumbfounded. From beginning to end, he didn't have time to take action. Even when he was about to swing the golden bowl, everything was over. The young man first used two strange magic weapons. After a deafening sound, the heads of the two thieves exploded. The remaining two thieves were frightened, but they still rushed forward. The boy slapped two more strange magic weapons into his palms, and a larger, thicker, and longer magic weapon appeared. With a bang, the two of them were wiped out, not even ashes left. Now, in front of Zen Master Kuya, the young man skillfully arranged the remaining two corpses into a pin shape and stuffed them into the pit. Etc. When was this hole dug? Oh my Buddha, this hand speed is too fast. When Wang Xiahua, who was very excited, and the reluctant eldest princess each held a handful of wild fruits and returned to their original place, they found that the four children had disappeared, and two new solitary graves had been quietly erected on the spot. Brother Lin, it seemed so loud here just now. What did you explode again? Wang Xiaohu asked curiously, holding the wild fruit. Just now, the earth was shaking, the mountains were shaking, and the cannons were firing. Wang Xiaohu felt it even when he was in the distant forest, climbing on the trees and picking wild fruits. The vibration was so powerful that it almost knocked him off his feet. Yilin glared at Wang Xiaohu, if you can't speak, just speak less. Wang Xiaohu shut his mouth instantly. But he found that Zen Master Kuyu's expression was strange. He couldn't bear it, closed his eyes tightly, knocked on the wooden fish, and murmured, Amitabha, good, 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 my Buddha is merciful, and I hope you can reach the pure land of ultimate bliss as soon as possible. It sounds like Zen Master Kuyu is mourning someone. Yilin was very satisfied with Zen Master Kuyu's enlightenment. Just now at Malu Mountain, the aftermath of the confrontation between Chao Rushuan and the black-robed old man sent Wang Xiaohu and the eldest princess flying away at the same time. Zen Master Kuya finally noticed Yilin, who was eating melon in the same place without moving. He sensed something was wrong. It stands to reason that most of Wang Xiaohu's strength has been blown away. How can this young man, who seems to be so weak, be as stable as an old dog? So, Yilin stopped pretending and showed her cards. But this showdown is not complete. At the very least, Wang Xiaohu and the eldest princess don't know the details. Those paper cranes seemed to be some kind of disposable props. While they were devouring the wild fruits that quenched their thirst and quenched their greed, the three paper cranes dimmed their light, quickly shrank in size, turned back into ordinary paper cranes, and landed at their feet. Yulin picked up the three paper cranes on the ground and put them in his arms, intending to study them when he had time. After eating and drinking, the eldest princess became quiet again and sat aside with her head bowed, as silent as a frightened young child. After waiting there for a while, Yulin stood up, took over the captain's position as usual, and gave the order, "Let's go." Wang Xiaohu was stunned when he heard this. "Aren't we waiting for them?" Yulin shook his head. "What is supposed to come will always come, and what is not supposed to come will never come, no matter how much you wait. No one dares to intervene in the battles of high-level monks. Besides, it has been so long, and it is too late to go back now. It's too late. Moreover, since the other party has used such a boring strategy, he must be sure to rely on those crooked melons and cracked dates to kidnap the eldest princess, but if the old man still doesn't get the successful report, say he might be surprised or suspicious, and he might just run away like this." The eldest princess raised her head, with a bit of surprise in her eyes. She seemed to be surprised at how this young man who behaved so mediocrely along the way knew her identity. She has obviously hidden it perfectly. I had to bear the pain of shaving my hair off. What Wang Xiaohu was thinking about was, what would happen? Where did the crooked melons and cracked dates come from? He didn't pay attention to the two lonely graves until the end. Wang Xiaohu thought it was an ordinary mound. "I will do my best to escort the eldest princess to Tianjianmen," Zen Master Kuyi said calmly. Without those thieves pretending to be teenagers, it would be no problem for Zen Master Kuyi's wooden fish to seat 4 people at once, as stable as a private car. Although the Buddhist wooden fish instrument is not as fast as the flying sword, it is worse than the flying sword. It is spacious and Yulin feels that it is much more comfortable to sit on. At this point, he secretly despised Jian Nanshan. Why did he insist on making Fijian so narrow? Make it wider and add seat bags, seat belts, and so on. Wouldn't it be more comfortable? No, this is not actually Brother Chun's fault. The limitations of the times, the pattern has become smaller. Sitting on the wooden fish, Zen Master Kuyi activated the Buddhist skills, and the wooden fish headed north. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 826. After what happened last time. The eldest princess seemed to have grown up overnight and no longer made any noise about returning to Qingdu. She doesn't even speak. Occasionally at night, in the dead of night, the eldest princess was holding the thick luggage. She didn't know if she had a nightmare, but she suddenly woke up, huddled in a corner, and sobbed softly. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Including Zen Master Kuye, the group of 4 people first went north and then turned east. When they were closest to Qingdu, they were only 3,000 miles away. The further north you go, the denser the cities become. Looking down from the air, you can see the high city walls, row upon row of houses, and noisy markets, a scene of singing and dancing and people living and working in peace and contentment. In the past 3 days, the 3 of them did not dare to stay in the city easily even at night because they were worried about being chased by thieves. That is to say, Yilin secretly went to the city to get some dry food for a few people to satisfy their hunger, so as not to starve to death in the wild. Every time she visits a city, Yilin makes a habit of visiting brothels and checking out the latest news. With the Agarwood order, it is indeed easy to do things. But what Yilin doesn't understand is that it seems that every Wangxiangla shopkeeper and the charming and beautiful women have heard of his name. When they hear the word Lin Yi, they blush and act shy. Yilin was puzzled by the look of him wanting to refuse but still welcoming. Among them, in one of the big cities, a shopkeeper named Mei Niang mistakenly called Yilin Brother Ninth, leaving Yilin confused. Ninth brother? What nine and what brother? After some inquiries, Yilin did not collect any information about Jian Nanshun and Chao Rushuan. Yeah, not surprising. If the two heavenly sword sect masters did not settle down in a crowded place, who would be able to spot them? It's been 3 days. He's really dead, right? Yilin muttered secretly. But it's also possible that the two groups of people staggered along the way, and maybe they didn't bump into each other. After all, Yilin and Zen Master Kuyi were careful along the way and did not leave too many traces. Yilin even deliberately left some specious traces in the opposite direction of some forks in the road to mislead the forces chasing the eldest princess. On the third night, Yilin chose a barren mountain outside the city and found a hiding place to stay. There are piles of rocks all around, and the rocks are covered with shrubs. It is like a naturally formed camping pit. Even if a bonfire is lit in the hiding place, it is difficult for the firelight to spread outside. As a sole cooking master, Yilin took the initiative to take charge of the dinner. She picked some pure natural wild vegetables from everywhere, then put on a big pot bought from the city and cooked wild vegetable soup. If Zen Master Kuya didn't eat meat, Yilin would have added some game meat to it. It would be a pity for this dish. The eldest princess had no interest in the wild vegetable soup and huddled in a corner of the pile of rocks. But when Yilin patted the pot lid with a smile, a ray of light flashed, and the fresh aroma overflowed. The eldest princess was suddenly stunned, and quickly crawled over with her hands and feet holding her luggage. Yilin filled a bowl for everyone. Zen Master Kuyi took a sip and burst into tears as if he was being shocked by electricity. Wang Xiaohu and the eldest princess saw Zen Master Kuyi's reaction and thought that the soup was so bad that it made the old monk cry. But Wang Xiaohu was really hungry and had finished eating the dry food. He smelled the fragrance wafting from the soup and it didn't seem to be poisonous, so he bit the bullet and started cooking. 2. Wang Xiaohu's mouth was burned and he couldn't hold his tongue straight. After a long time, he finally managed to mumble out, "Brother Lin, it tastes so good." Yilin shook his head and sighed, not satisfied with the dish. Limited by the materials, it can only be made like this. Zen Master Kuyi drank even faster. He even had a ridiculous idea. Should we dig this young man into the back kitchen of Heian Temple as a vegetarian cook? It smells so good. Several people praised in unison. A large pot of wild vegetable soup was divided among several people. This was not the first time that Yilin used soul food to conquer the enemy. The taciturn princess finally showed a good look towards Yilin. The eldest princess timidly moved a few steps closer, looking like a kitten that had relaxed its vigilance a little. She raised her head and said to Yilin, "Hello, my name is Xia Xiaoman." Xia Xiaoman? Along the way, Yilin didn't ask about the eldest princess's name. In fact, he wasn't interested either. But when Xia Xiaoman introduced himself, Yilin thought for a moment and asked, "Real name?" Xia Xiaoman hugged the bundle in his arms a little tighter, dumbfounded. Why didn't this look like his real name? "I am the eldest princess of Daqian, the current emperor's sister, Xia Xiaoman, nicknamed Mingzhu and nicknamed Princess Zhenping. I will not change my name when I am in office, and I will not change my surname when I sit down." Princess Zhenping. So flat. Yilin hurriedly touched Xia Xiaoman's chest, and then nodded vigorously, fearing that Xia Xiaoman wouldn't believe that she believed in her. "Yes, I believe it, she is just like her name." Xia Xiaoman was finally satisfied when he heard that Yilin believed it. But after thinking about it carefully, I felt that there was something wrong with Yilin's words. But she couldn't tell what was wrong. After the two had a simple intersection, there was no more communication. It's just a chance meeting, why should we have a deep friendship? Yilin's heart is with the Tianjian sect and is not interested in the eldest princess. After eating, they decided to spend the night because the night was dangerous. With the warmth of the bonfire, Xia Xiaoman found a safe nook by himself, curled up and fell asleep. Wang Xiaohu lay directly next to the bonfire, his face turned upward, and snored. Yulin sat by the campfire, adding wood to the fire from time to time. Tuck, 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 tuck. After Zen Master Kuya had eaten his fill, he would wrap his fingers around the Buddhist beads around his neck and tap the wooden fish gently, like a lullaby, making people drowsy. Yulin, who was adding dry wood to the bonfire to light the fire, felt something was wrong as he listened. He felt that the old monk's low chanting and the rhythm of the wooden fish seemed to have some kind of soothing power, which made people feel uncomfortable. Yulin couldn't help but feel that her mood was calm and it was difficult to make waves. Yulin asked, "What are you doing?" Zen Master Kuyi closed his eyes gently, stopped chanting sutras, and replied, "I am eliminating the sin of killing for the donor." Ha, Yulin smiled, "There are murderers everywhere in the world. If you can kill me, what can you do?" Buddha said, "The world is an endless sea of suffering, and all sentient beings are going through thousands of hardships in the boat. You and I are going through it together. I am not very powerful. If I can cut one person, it is just one person. That is enough." Forget it. Yulin had no choice but to feel that he and Zen Master Kuyi were indeed not on the same channel, so he did not intend to delve deeper into this topic. Yulin walked up to Zen Master Kuyi and sat down cross-legged. With a flick of his finger, a soundproof barrier fell around the two of them. In an instant, everything was silent, and the chirping of insects and birds was inaudible. At this point, Zen Master Kuyi finally opened his eyes and looked at Yulin with a more thoughtful expression. "I have a clumsy eye, and what Master Lin used is not like the Taoist secret technique. It's a small skill passed down from our family. It's hard to show up in the hall, so we might as well not mention it." Yulin said in a rare moment of humility, "What's wrong with your eyes? I don't think you can be hurt by those people." The old monk lowered his head and sighed softly, "My disciples are confused and believe in slander. They think that by kidnapping the eldest princess, they will be able to obtain high official status, rich salary, glory, and wealth." Yulin understood that it turned out that he was stabbed blind by one of his own people. "Then it seems you have made a mistake." Yulin smiled. "Amitabha, what Master Lin said is not true." Zen Master Kuyi shook his head, "I have long seen that Wu Xian's mind is not right. I just tried to find ways to guide him to do good, but in the end he still has no fate with the Buddha." Yulin nodded. He couldn't understand the old monk's thoughts, but he seemed to understand. To put it bluntly, he was stubborn. He then pointed at Wang Xiaohu, who was lying on the ground and sleeping soundly. "Then, since you are recruiting disciples to transfer people, why is it him? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 827. Yulin's question seemed to be on point. Zen Master Kuye struck the wooden fish again and fell into silence. After a moment, Zen Master Kuye fell on Yulin's face, looked at it carefully for a moment, and then said, "He has a pure heart and is destined to be my Buddha. But it's me you're looking at." Yulin smiled. "He and you are like two poles." Zen Master Kuye sighed deeply, "Yin and yang, good and evil, wrong and right, sorrow and joy, your fates are destined to be inseparable." "Heh," Yulin shook his head, "I don't believe in fate." But as soon as the words came out of her mouth, Yulin felt a little ironic. It was because of fate that he arrived in this world. In the eyes of gods, human beings are humble existences that cannot even control their own destiny. Yulin always believed that he could find something at the end of this world, so he worked hard for it. Now that I say this, it seems a bit untrue. Zen Master Kuyi seemed to have read through Yulin's thoughts. "You believe it?" Yulin was silent. Zen Master Kuyi looked at Yulin's face again. "Donor Lin, can you believe this, past and present life? Yulin hesitated for a few seconds and finally nodded. Zen Master Kuyi asked again, do you know the legend of the Kiju Empress? Why is Xiao 11 involved again? Yulin was stunned. Zindao Xiao, your vest seems to be very famous here. In silence, Yulin neither denied nor affirmed. He didn't want Zen Master Kuya to think too much. This time, Zen Master Kuya thought that Yulin didn't know, so he whispered, legend has it that 5,000 years ago, there was cause and effect and reincarnation in the world. Past, present, and next lives were written on everyone's face. Oh! Yulin glanced at Zen Master Kuya curiously. He didn't quite understand the meaning of Zen Master Kuya's words. Zen Master Kuya continued, but starting from 5,000 years ago, the path of life has been completely different. People no longer have previous lives, and they can no longer reach that life. Death is like a lamp extinguished, disappearing between heaven and earth. Yulin remained silent. He listened quietly, listening to the secrets spoken by Zen Master Kuya. But Lao Na's facial appearance of the benefactor of Guanlin Forest is unclear. The lifelines on the front and back are unclear. There is no way to see where he came from, and no destination to return to. The physiognomy, with all due respect, I doubt its accuracy. Shape comes from the heart. Oh, Yulin was doubtful, but still nodded and asked, so, what does my face mean? Zen Master Kuya smiled slightly and said Umitba, this means that the karma between Donor Lin and the previous life has not been severed, and there is no end to the destiny pattern, and it is very likely to lead to an unknown other life. Although Yulin couldn't understand Zen Master Kuya's analysis process, he understood the conclusion. In an instant, Yulin stood up suddenly and looked at Zen Master Kuya in surprise. After thinking about it carefully, Yulin sat down again and her expression returned to calm, but what does what you said have to do with Empress Kiju? Zen Master Kuya raised his head and looked up at the colorful tree shadows above. He was silent for a long time before saying something that made Yulin change his expression. Legend has it that 5,000 years ago, the Empress Kiju interrupted reincarnation with her own hands. When Zen Master Kuya told this legend, Yulin's neck suddenly shrank, feeling a little guilty for no reason. Empress Kiju interrupted reincarnation? How was it interrupted? What is reincarnation? Yulin clearly remembered that the first words he heard when he turned into the egg were, this is between reincarnation. But there is no reincarnation in this world, except for you. Could it be? Ahem, it's not that outrageous. Yulin ended up chatting with Zen Master Kuya all night. Talking from all over the world to the vast sea and sky. From the ruins of Xiaolian Temple in Hezhu, Zeniu, to the secret realm of Blood Demon Valley in Luzhu, Beiju. From legends 5,000 years ago to current government affairs. From Yulin's cooking skills to the vegetarian dishes of Hayanji's back chef, it's not very good. Yulin discovered that there is an advantage to chatting face to face, that is, you can do whatever you want without fear of harmony. Zen Master Kuya is indeed a veteran. He knows almost everything and answers every question, which greatly enriches Yulin's experience. But why almost? There was only one thing. Zen Master Kuya was probably afraid that the young man in front of him would be involved too deeply, so he ended the topic with just a few words and did not go any further. Yulin asked about what happened within the Dakian dynasty, which forced the eldest princess to flee Kingdu. Zen Master Kuya was silent for a long time. Only then did he say the 8 characters, the building will collapse and trouble will arise. The night passed. Until dawn. Wang Xiaohu and Xia Xiaoman woke up quietly, and the alluring fragrance was already floating in the air. Yulin took the initiative to make breakfast again and cooked a pot of wild vegetable soup. As soon as they smelled the aroma of vegetables, the two of them stood up, washed themselves at the nearby spring, and sat in front of the pot, hungry, waiting for the meal to be served. After finishing 3 large bowls in one go, The eldest princess Yazioman touched her bare head with satisfaction and sighed, "Sure enough, you can't tell the difference between appearance and appearance. I didn't expect that you, a person with such outstanding cooking skills, can cook such simple wild vegetables. It's a masterpiece of exquisite craftsmanship." These words sounded like compliments at first, but after thinking about it carefully, Yilin glared at the eldest princess. "Your royal family didn't teach you to speak well? Believe it or not, I will beat you up. Tisk, I am the eldest princess of Dakian." Boom. Yilin didn't wait for Xiaoziaoman to finish announcing her identity. She picked up a ladle and slammed it on the eldest princess's head, making a crisp sound. The eldest princess was in pain, covering her head and glaring fiercely at the young man who dared to rebel, thinking that when she resumes her status as a princess one day, she must make him look good. After eating and drinking, the group of people took advantage of the morning light and set out on the road again when the sky was dimly lit. In the end, they still didn't wait for Jian Nanchun and Chao Rushuan. But since their destination is the same, they only need to reach the coast of the East China Sea to finally reunite. In fact, with the knock sword order, whether Jian Nanchun and Chao Rushuan came or not was no longer important to Yilin. All he had to do was to rush to the shore of the East China Sea as soon as possible, activate the sword order, and let the people from the Tianjian sect come to receive him. A few days later, they spanned the mountains of the Eastern Zhou dynasty. After Dongzhou Mountain, there is an endless plain, and to the east of the plain, there is an endless ocean. Several people stood on the top of the Dongzhou Mountain and looked out into the distance. The blue ocean reflected the harsh light. In the distance, the sea was hazy and cloudy, and there were undulating mountain peaks hidden in it. But if you look closer, everything is like a mirage, and the magnificent beauty disappears. Faintly appearing, sometimes far away, sometimes present or not, waiting quietly for the destined person, this is the fairyland overseas. It seems very close, but in fact it may be tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of miles away from the shore. When they were about to go down the mountain and head to the beach, something happened that surprised Yilin. Wang Xiahua walked up to Yilin with some embarrassment and whispered, "Brother Lin, I have decided. I want to go to Ping'an Temple to practice with Master Kuyi. He said that if I go to practice Buddhism, I will definitely achieve something." Zen Master Kuya was at the side, with uncontrollable joy in his brows. Then Yilin understood. He patted Wang Xiaohu on the shoulder, feeling mixed emotions in his heart. "Congratulations." It sounded like he was talking to Wang Xiaohu, but in fact Yilin was talking to Zen Master Kuyi. "Congratulations, you finally succeeded in cheating." Zen Master Kuyi caught Yilin's eyes and smiled without saying a word. "Master, did you send it here?" Yilin clasped his hands together. Although Zen Master Kuyi deceived Yilin's childhood playmate Wang Xiaohu and ran away, Yilin still respected this Buddhist monk deep down in his heart. Every night late at night, Yilin would always hold candlelight talks with Zen Master Kuyi. He was still a little reluctant to think of Zen Master Kuyi being gone in the following days. Zen Master Kuyi recited Amitabha Buddha lightly and said with a smile, "It's time for Lao Na and Xiaohu to turn back. The road ahead belongs to Donor Lin and Her Royal Highness the Princess." The eldest princess was a little unhappy. But with her status, it was not easy for her to stalk him, so she stood aside with a dark face and remained silent. "Brother Lin, take care." Wang Xiaohu and Yilin walked out of Qingnu village at the same time. Unexpectedly, not long after they came out, they would go their separate ways. This was the first time that Wang Xiaohu felt that things were impermanent and people were separated. Speaking of being sad, Yilin was actually not that sad at all. She smiled and said, "Every feast in the world must come to an end. Donor Lin, before leaving, I gave the donor something. I hope Donor Lin can take pity on the common people for my sake." As he spoke, Zen Master Kuya took out a small, flat cloth bag from his luggage and handed it to Yilin. Yulin waited for a moment and found that there was a book inside. Secrets. Yulin shook the small cloth bag and asked. Zen Master Kuya did not hide anything, and revealed the objects in the cloth bag in front of others: Qingming Mantra, the entrance to Ping'an Temple to practice Buddhism. A little practice can make Donor Lin clear his mind, and clear his mind during practice, which is the icing on the cake. This is the icing on the cake. It's not a profound secret method. I hope Lin Donor won't dislike it. How is that possible? Yulin put away his smile and clasped his hands together. So, thank you, Master. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 828. Originally, Zen Master Kuyi wanted to send the eldest princess to her destination. But here, he turned around again. Because he discovered that from beginning to end, Yulin, who was hidden in the team, could actually achieve such a mission without him sending her away. These days, I talk to Donor Lin about Buddhism every night. Even if the other person doesn't understand or recognize it, Zen Master Kuya and Yulin have become friends for half a year. Yulin occasionally said some words that went against common sense, which made Zen Master Kuya feel that they made some sense. At the same time, he shook his head secretly. He must not let Wang Xiaohu get entangled with this person any longer, otherwise he would be led astray. This is a good seedling for practicing Buddhism. It must not grow crookedly. Zen Master Kuyi was very worried during this time. Deal with Yulin at night. During the day, he had to teach Wang Xiaohu some simple Buddhist principles. After this was passed around, Wang Xiaohu was finally moved by Master Kuyi and decided to go to Ping'an Temple to have a look. Moreover, he somehow seemed not interested in Tianjianmen. Maybe it was because of that meal, or maybe it was for other reasons. Wang Xiaohu always had an indescribable fondness for Master Kuyi's bald head, which looked quite festive. So Wang Xiaohu left. Zen Master Kuyi's wooden fish was light and fluttering, swaying left and right. There was an irrepressible joy in its flight path, and it took Wang Xiaohu away. On the top of the eastern Zhou mountain, only the eldest princess and Yulin were left. The two walked down the mountain along the path. Yulin didn't show any amazing abilities in front of Xia Xiaoman, just step by step. It was like going on an outing. Xia Xiaoman was still wearing the monk's common clothes, and her head had not been shaved for half a month. Dense hair residue had grown on her forehead, making her look like a deviant little monk who had just returned to secular life. Hey, Mr. Lin, how about we discuss it? As they walked, the eldest princess had some strange thoughts. Explain. Yulin replied without looking back. I heard from the master that you have some skills inherited from your family. Why don't you escort this princess back to Qingdu? As long as you return to Qingdu, you will be well rewarded. Oh, Yulin seemed to be interested. She stopped, turned around, looked at the eldest princess up and down for a few times, and then asked, what do you want to do after returning to Qingdu? Xia Xiaoman bit her lower lip lightly, but she bit her lower lip too hard, and she still didn't know it, leaving a shallow blood mark on her lower lip. After being silent for a long time, Xia Xiaoman saw that Yulin was a ruthless character, so he could only try to reveal some of his trump cards. I want to take my brother out of Qingdu. Could the younger brother you are talking about be the current Emperor Daqian, the little emperor who ascended the throne at the age of 3, Xia Jishan? Yes, what else? Wait, how dare you call the emperor by his name? The eldest princess couldn't help but her eyes widened again. Yulin ignored her and said to herself, Heh, what if we take your brother out of Qingdu? Xia Xiaoman thought Yulin had agreed, and immediately didn't care about Yulin's offense. Her face was a little more rosy, her eyes were rippled, and she was full of energy. Xia Xiaoman excitedly grabbed Yulin's lapel, took a few steps closer, and said quickly in a low voice, the king of Huangnan Genis is the elder brother of my father, and the uncle of our 2 sisters. As long as my 2 brothers and I went to the emperor's uncle, who, for the sake of my father, might be willing to send troops to eradicate that witch in Qingdu and re-establish my stronghold. Temptress. Yilin had been pretending before, but now she was really interested. Which temptress? Please elaborate. Xia Xiaoman had spoken out, and no longer concealed anything, but rather filled his heart with bitterness. He gritted his teeth and told the secrets of the royal family. It turned out that Emperor Xia Yuan was unlucky in his later years and was in danger of dying, so he took in a young and beautiful concubine. That concubine was as beautiful as a flower and had a curvy figure. No matter who saw her, it was difficult to take her eyes away, and their eyes were straightened. It is said that her appearance made even the concubines in the palace feel ashamed. I am willing to go out and walk on the same road as the new royal concubine. But things started to go wrong in the otherwise good royal harem when the temptress came. First, Queen Daqian fell ill mysteriously, leaving her two young siblings, Xia Xiaoman and Xia Jishan, to die. Later, Emperor Xia Yuan's temperament changed drastically. He ignored all the noble concubines, ignored state affairs, and lingered on the bed of his new concubine, living in a romantic and happy manner. And Emperor Xia Yuan's health became worse and worse, and he eventually died. Before Emperor Xia Yuan died, he somehow made the new concubine the queen and the master of the harem. After the death of Emperor Xia Yuan, the new queen assisted the government from behind the curtain, saying that she was assisting the young prince in running state affairs. But now that the prince has grown up, this assistant government from behind the curtain has not been banned. Different voices gradually appeared in the Daqian dynasty. These different voices caused the originally monolithic Daqian dynasty to be divided into three factions. One is the radical faction that firmly supports the new queen and supports the new queen's assistants in the government. The second is the opposition that opposes the new queen, and the third is the neutral faction that is indifferent to this and keeps to itself. There were constant fights within the royal family, and the princes outside gradually became dissatisfied. They began to recruit troops and taxes, and secretly wanted to sit on the mountain and become the king. In this cliched and taken for granted story of royal struggle, the poor emperor who was silenced by the new queen was Xia Xiaoman's younger brother. As we all know, the quality of a story depends on its perspective. From Xia Xiaoman's perspective, the new queen was undoubtedly a temptress and deserved death. But looking at it from a neutral point of view, Yilin felt that this so-called temptress was quite capable. She was able to subvert a century-old dynasty with one person's strength, which was a bit of a trick. If given the chance, Yilin would even like to see this temptress with her own eyes. Maybe the conversation will be more enjoyable, and we can sit together and share our experiences of daily life. Xia Xiaoman talked for half an hour in one breath, which made his mouth dry and his ears noisy. But when she poured out most of the bitter water, she came back to her senses and found that the young man in front of her had blurred eyes, as if he was wandering in a fugue, and she suddenly became very angry. She subconsciously picked up the bag in her arms and wanted to hit the boy's hateful face, but she suddenly remembered that the bag was much more valuable than the boy's face, so she resisted the impulse and asked patiently, "What on earth are you doing? Are you listening?" Listen. Yilin's eyes returned to focus. He was indeed a little distracted just now, and he was not fully listening. He was mainly thinking about things based on the words of the eldest princess. So, he roughly understood the situation of the eldest princess. Yilin's eyes glanced at the eldest princess's luggage, and then her half-smiling eyes fell on the eldest princess's cute and red face again, and she slowly said, "The rank difference is too far." Rank? Xia Xiaoman was stunned when he heard this, and his flat chest couldn't help but puff up a few inches. "Yes, there is a huge gap between you and the new queen you mentioned." "It's a temptress," Xia Xiaoman corrected Yilin's words seriously. "Let me just mention a few points. First, do you feel that you were too relaxed when you left Qingdu?" Xia Xiaoman recalled the scene when he left Qingdu. She went to Heianji Temple to have her head shaved. Under the arrangement of a trusted courtier in the palace, a fake pass was issued, and the pass was indeed easy. At that time, she thought that she had shaved her head to prevent the other party from taking precautions, but now that she thought about it, the defense of the city gate seemed to be ridiculously lax at that time. Thinking of this, Xiaoxiaoman nodded with a dull face, which was regarded as recognition. Yilin clapped her fingers and said, "Second, suppose that the new queen is just to blackmail the emperor to order the princes. You are just the eldest princess. It doesn't matter. Killing you will only make the topic worse, so let her go. Let her go, there is nothing wrong with that. But after you left Kingdu, she posted a high reward on the black market, causing worldly warriors, killers, and solitary cultivators to come after you one after another. Why? Yes, why?" Yilin did not explain, but smiled, and broke off the third finger. "I understood a little bit when you mentioned your uncle, King Genies. Although there is chaos in the Dacian dynasty, on the surface, the power is still unified, singing and dancing everywhere. Peace prevails and the people live and work in peace and contentment. Because there is indeed an orthodox emperor sitting in the palace, no one dares to take the lead in causing chaos. But suppose that you, the escaped eldest princess, have something key in your hand that can destabilize the throne, and suddenly I can't think of anything else, I want to take refuge with someone who has a lot of troops, like the king of Genies or something like that." The eldest princess's little mouth suddenly opened into an O shape in surprise, and she vaguely understood something. Ignoring the eldest princess's reaction, Yilin continued, "Before, Zen Master Kui was here, and I gave him face but never mentioned it. Now that he is gone and you start making trouble again, I have to say a few words. You, Princess Dagon and Princess Zhenping, it doesn't matter whether they are dead or alive. What that witch cares about is not your life at all. What she cares about may be something on your body, such as..." When Xiaoxiaoman heard this, he hugged the kit in his arms tightly. Yilin flicked her fingers, and the cloth bag in Xiaoxiaoman's arms suddenly popped out of her arms and opened in mid-air. Rolls of black silk hair carefully tied into curls were scattered from the cloth bag. Yilin was stunned. Was it Xiaoxiaoman's hair? No, that's not the point. The point is, among the long scattered hair, a dark green square jade seal fell from the air. The surface of the jade seal is covered with jade texture, and a strange bright red color is faintly revealed in the deepest part. Just looking at the material, you can tell that it is not cheap. No. Xiaoxiaoman was so anxious now that he reached out and dug into the air. But how could she afford it more than Yilin? Yilin casually took a photo, and the black seal was pulled into Yilin's palm by an invisible hand. Of course Yilin was not very interested in Xiaoxiaoman's belongings, as it should be. But when the seal touched Yilin's palm, Yilin's whole body was shocked, as if she had been electrocuted. In front of my eyes, familiar words appeared. Human Emperor's Seal. Level Legend, 3/7. Restrictions: the destiny belongs to the Emperor. Effects: suppress the country and prevent all evil from invading. Explanation: yes, this is one of the keys.